members of the human family. Today is the 15th of May 2024. I am Ashman Wagdi in Mohammedia, Morocco. Welcome to the General Durability Podcast. My guest today is Madam Sarah Turner from the United Kingdom. She is a brain health expert and she is here with us to help us in our quest for knowledge, ultimately self-knowledge. Welcome, Sarah. How are you doing?
Thank you, Otman. Yes, very good today. Thank you.
Great, great. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and how it came to be that you engage with the brain health?
Sure. Yeah, I actually started out with pharmaceuticals. So I started out my career doing research for big pharmaceutical companies, looking mainly at drug deliveries. And I quickly found that it has a lot more to do with the state of your body, how you actually can deal with drugs and how different kinds of drugs get deposited in the body. So that started me off really looking at how we could maybe focus more on ourselves rather than some external medication. So I did a nutrition degree, I did a neuroscience degree, I did all kinds of things to try and focus a little bit more on that. And it eventually led me over to California, and I did a lot in what was the biohacking movement, which I'm
Okay.
sure you've heard all about. Yeah. So people who are doing all kinds of things, mainly in adjusting their environment and in just adjusting their own physiological state in order to optimize their health.
Health in general.
Health in general, yeah. I mean, it's the biohackers are kind of more about not just having a state of health, but being the best you can be. So
Yes.
enhanced health, so it's all about how do you get the edge? How do you really maximize on all the things you're doing, the exercise, the supplements, the food? And that really took me to light, because
Yeah.
I think light is probably one of the biggest factors involved in health and human enhancement. That quite often, people forget a little bit about the light environment and how important it is.
Yes, yes, great point. Because I have a civil engineering background, and everyone is talking about CO2. I see in light much bigger problems because I see ecosystems die. For example, where I am now, there has been an ecological system, and because of light pollution, there is a massive degradation of the ecological system.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's thinking on a more global level.
Yeah.
But from a kind of a human standpoint too, a human-centric standpoint, we're not so much paying attention to our light environment. And of course, we are animals that have evolved under the sun, and we're hugely sensitive
Yeah.
to a lot of different wavelengths of light.
Yeah.
We take cues for the time of day through our eyes, but we also have a lot of light receivers in our body. So that's where I have come in, where I'm thinking more about the gut brain, because our whole body is covered in light receptors, including our guts, including our brains. Our microbiome are responding to external and internal light cues.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating field of study, and actually it's a growing field of study. So more and more people are now looking at how can we potentially take different light frequencies and have different physiological effects.
Great. I'm very interested. Can you tell
Yes,
us about, first of all, before diving deep into it, uh,
yes.
what is the relation between the gut microbiome and the brain? Is there a direct link?
Oh, for sure. So your gut microbiome, I mean, we all have different kinds of levels of microbiome, depending where we are, depending what we're exposed to. And when we're in harmony, when we're in balance, we have this, it's really a collaboration, I suppose, between species. We think of ourselves as human, but actually, if you're looking at cells in the body, we are actually more bacteria than human. There are
Yes.
probably more bacterial cells in the body than there are human cells. So we are kind of a walking collective, a walking collaboration. And so everything is interconnected. And
Yeah.
especially, our gut bacteria are doing a lot of things for us. They're producing and helping us to produce certain chemicals. They're also releasing certain metabolites that have an effect. All of these things impact the brain, some directly via the vagus nerve. Some of these metabolites can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, and some indirectly. Some we're just affecting hormone production and things like that.
The good point what you are making, because I have heard a lot from my from German experts.
Mhm.
A lot of them are talking about leaky gut, leaky brain.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a big problem in today's world.
Yeah, and I think possibly, we are exposed to a lot more toxins potentially right now. Also, potentially we're exposed to a lot of environmental disturbances, different kinds of electromagnetic fields, non-native electromagnetic fields, pesticides in the air, fine particles in the air. All of these things can have an effect on the integrity of our gut. So when people say leaky gut, what they really mean is the integrity of the gut has been compromised. So some of these cells that are meant to kind of butt up close to each other become disorganized in a way that gaps appear in the integrity of the gut lining. And when you have these gaps, potentially food particles can leak out, metabolites from bacteria can leak out and go into the bloodstream, and that causes inflammation. It can cause all kinds of other issues. So I think it is a massive problem right now. And most people, that you speak to say, oh, I've got some gut problems, or I know someone who's got IBS, or I know someone who's got leaky gut, or if I eat a certain thing, I become inflamed. So I think it is a huge global problem right now.
Yes, and when these toxins, if we take it, we say, okay, there is a leaky gut.
Mhm.
When it becomes a brain problem, so it goes through the blood, and then why it did normally it doesn't have to cross the brain barrier.
No, but certain smaller molecules and things can cross the blood-brain barrier, and deliberately so. We're meant to have a communication between our gut and our brains. However, we can get these detrimental bacteria which are releasing metabolites which we might not usually be exposed to. And like I say, we can also have it just in the blood supply that's getting to the brain. We can have it like externally to the blood-brain barrier. So there's a lot of ways that you're having this effect on the brain. And the symptoms of that are things like brain fog. That's one of the main symptoms that you might get of having these metabolites that are coming from your gut actually ending up in your brain. Also, inflammation. We have this, as I said, the body is a connected system. So if you have inflammation in one part of the body, you're going to have inflammation in another part. So neuroinflammation, again, it causes all kinds of symptoms, like, potentially sleep disturbances, um, can alter mood, can alter cognition, can
Yes.
change how you can focus, can even influence things like memory, because if you're not focusing and paying attention to things, you're not laying down those base memories. So the integrity of the gut is hugely important for brain function. And
Yeah.
I think now people are starting to see the connection between chronic diseases, like maybe like Parkinson's disease is one that's famously now connected to the gut. And people usually see a gut symptom before Parkinson's. So, people who have Parkinson's say, oh, yeah, well, I've had constipation for years, because the gut symptoms seem to, come before the symptoms that then you start to recognize in the brain. So, yeah, this whole connection between the gut and the brain is hugely important for us, and probably one of the major factors in any kind of brain disease or brain symptom.
Yes, like you said before, we are a walking organism.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we have to see ourselves like in a small ecological system, and there is a lot of interconnectedness between different living sh species, like you have said before. Yes, great. Uh, the gut health has not just an effect on the brain, but also on the heart.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, there are lots of these different axes because, as I said, the body is really lots of nested systems, interconnected systems. So, of course, you have a gut brain axis, you have a gut heart axis, you have a gut liver axis. All of the organs are connected in some subtle and some very direct ways. So really, it's about treating the body like an interconnected system. You can't do one thing to one part of the body without it having a knock-on effect everywhere else. So, and of course, there are bacteria. The bacteria aren't just in our gut. We have bacteria also all over our bodies. I mean, some of the
Yes.
most interesting studies right now are looking at things like Alzheimer's. what kind of bugs are in our brains. You know, there's some evidence to show, you know, even some fungus, some different kinds of microorganisms can be at play there. The heart
Yes.
too.
Yeah, there is a lot of people speculating that these bugs or microorganisms in the brain,
Mhm.
there is helpful ones and there is damaging ones, and those the last ones are producing like dementia, anxiety, provoking a lot of psychological issues, not just physiological issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We live in a kind of balance, you know, you have, you know, to say good and bad, you know, some of these organisms, it might just be the dose. You know, low levels of a certain organism are probably quite beneficial to the body. You need a bit of stress in the body to keep the body going. It's just if you have an overgrowth of those particular species. So really it's about balance and homeostasis and keeping things in a way, you know, where the body can deal with the metabolites that come off or deal with the stress. So I think it's difficult to classify bacteria as good or bad. Sometimes it is just in where they are and the numbers of them, the population.
Yes. It is like the issue with the environment in general.
Mhm.
Biodiversity, I think it's also a role, has a role in the gut and the whole body, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, diversity is a big thing. Yeah. You want to have, because diversity gives you options, you know, like in nature, you know,
Yeah.
that's why we have so many creatures in nature, because then you have options. You know, if you get a certain environment, you can respond to it if you
Yeah.
have diversity. And I think you're exactly right. That's how we should think about our bodies, as kind of an environment where you want to cultivate a lot of diversity. You want to have a lot of flexibility in the system.
My speculation from my own experience is that I will tell you my experience. Uh, a few years ago, I was 16, 17 years old. I had the problem with my tonsil, and my doctors were always prescribing penicillin, and then after that, extonsilin, heavy antibiotics. And after a while, after 2 years or so of treatment, I was getting massive problem with my gut. It's like someone is tearing me apart. As the pain was not bearable. It's like many times I prefer to be dead. And it
Yeah.
developed many very bizarre ideas and thoughts. I think that's a speculation. I think that consciousness is a source of collective thinking or collective thought between all these microorganisms, and the end result is what we are thinking. We are just the end results.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating when you think about, yeah, we are this collection of species, and what does that actually mean for our consciousness? And what does it mean, like you say, when we give these broad spectrum antibiotics that wipe out a lot of the species that are living in us? Yeah.
Do genetics play a role in the gut biodiversity or just diet?
I'm sure everything plays a role. I mean, certainly where you are geographically is going to have a huge impact.
Okay.
You know, so regardless of your ancestry, where you are actually, you know, on the planet, you're getting exposed to all of the minerals from the water,
Yeah.
from the soil, from the plants that you're eating. So I think so it is an interesting point that, yeah, we should maybe look at our ancestry and maybe try and make sure that we are thinking about, okay, am I eating things that maybe suit that? Am I getting exposed to the light that's going to produce the right microbiome? But I think probably the thing that has most impact is your immediate environment, rather than your genetic ancestry. Like where you actually are on the planet will kind of dictate the bugs that you have in you at that given time.
Okay, so the epigenetics is more important than the genetic part.
Potentially, yeah, because epigenetics is how you express certain proteins.